Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Bugay. Let's start with the latest developments. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with Vice President, head of the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs of the Swiss Confederation, Ignazio Cassis. The officials discussed preparations for the 5th Conference on Reforms in Ukraine, which will be held between July 4th and 5th next year in the Swiss city of Lugano. During the meeting, they paid special attention to bilateral trade and economic cooperation. Effective use of local resources, interaction between regional authorities and business, as well as people's participation in the development of their communities. Such issues were discussed in Kyiv at a forum dedicated to decentralization. This is one of the stages of preparation for the 5th International Conference on Reforms to be held in Lugano. The event was opened by Prime Minister of Ukraine and Vice President of Switzerland. Shmyhal thanks Switzerland for its assistance in implementing reforms. In addition, since 2015, the country has donated humanitarian aid in the amount of over 27 million Swiss francs for the eastern regions of Ukraine.
Over the past 16 years, Switzerland has been directly assisting local governments in modernizing local infrastructure and local communities. During 2019-2020, as a result of the second stage of the reform, the state transferred from the executive authorities to local governments a significant part of the powers, resources and responsibilities, along with powers and resources. Side by side with Ukraine, we support it in the implementation of important political, economic and social reforms. Reforms are not fun and games. Reform is hard work. However, how difficult they may seem, reforms are needed to tackle the often changing challenges of the present as well as for well-being of our citizens.
The gas tariff will be unchanged until the end of the heating season. Earlier, the Prime Minister stated this at the government's meeting. Thus, Ukrainians will not pay more than 8 hryvnia, that is some 21 US cents, for 1 cubic meter. The Cabinet of Ministers assures that there are enough gas reserves in Ukraine to survive the winter without problems.
This week, the government also halved tariffs for those Ukrainians who found themselves without a gas supplier. The price will also amount to 7.96 hryvnias per cubic meter of gas. It will be valid from October the 1st to November the 30th. Therefore, I urge people not to waste time and sign an agreement with the Naftogaz of Ukraine or with any other supplier. And this price will be valid through the entire heating season.
Over $4 million of incomes. This is a sum Ukrainians declared over the past 2 months in the frameworks of a voluntary declaration campaign, which started on September 1st. This is a one-time opportunity to legalize income from which taxes and fees were not paid until the 1st of January of the current year. In this case, the voluntary declaration does not need to indicate information about the sources of origin of the declared assets.
The legislation clearly defines the composition and limits under which the assets are not subject to declaration. Assets of total value under 400,000 hryvnias or the real estate, such as apartments with a total area of up to 120 square meters, or private houses with the area not exceeding 240 square meters, and non-residential premises with an area not exceeding 60 square meters.
One could check the work of any center for provision of the administrative services and get money for this. The Ministry for Digital Transformation launched the all-Ukrainian evaluation of those centers' work. From now on, all will now provided with an opportunity to improve the provision of public services in the country. My colleagues will tell you more.
Modern technologies instead of paper-made customer feedback books. The Ministry for Digital Transformation of Ukraine has launched a statewide program of improvement of administrative services provision centers' work. From now on, Ukrainians have an opportunity to file their recommendations, proposals or compliance concerning the center's work in any convenient way.
4 канала, каким можно
There will be 4 channels one could employ. Those are QR codes, a message in Viber app or regular SMS, a review on the Diia platform for state services in the center's map site section, and a channel more convenient for those citizens who do not use the devices or prefer communication via telephone calls. That would be a phone call home given one left at the home number visiting the Administrative Services Provision Center.
From now on, one has an opportunity to file a review of one's visit to the center. The information collected will be analyzed and the specialists will offer the improvements. Besides, all willing can become Digital Transformation Ministry's agents and get money for this. One could do this filling in an application at the Diia Center's web portal and listening to a briefing. The points one collects visiting the centers would then be turned into money.
That would make from 50 to 1,000 Ukrainian hryvnias. We are now going to start a search of people who are indeed in need of administrative services. That is, let's say one needs a certificate of ownership right for some property. That is, one should really have some property, of course, to apply for certificate. Those should be specific people, and the more complicated the situation of an agent is, the more money he or she are going to get.
The ministry is going to gather all recommendations and offers till the end of the year. The results will be evaluated and corresponding improvements to the center's work are set to be introduced. Reported by Nick Starkov and Valery Bakus, UATV News.
Healthcare officials warn on Ukrainians to vaccinate children against polio infection as soon as possible. Chief Sanitary Doctor of Ukraine Igor Kuzin said the recent polio outbreak in the Rivne region could have been avoided if 243 children had been vaccinated duly in time. Meanwhile, less than half of them received jabs. Over 100 had contraindications to, while 48 families refused to vaccinate their kids. Only 56% of children are vaccinated against polio in Ukraine, while the effective number to form the collective immunity is 95%.
Поліомієліт може спричиняти параліч на все життя.
Polio can cause lifelong palsy and sometimes end up lethally. I urge parents, do not place the health of your children at risk. Check the vaccination status of children, and if you have refused vaccinations or missed them for any reason, take advice from family doctor or pediatrician. Vaccinations can be given in public clinics free of charge. All regions are provided with quality vaccines in sufficient quantities.
The coronavirus mortality level in Ukraine may reach 1,000 a day, stated Secretary of the National Defense and Security Council of Ukraine Oleksiy Danilov on air of one of Ukrainian TV channels. According to him, these numbers are possible as early as in November, while the overall infection rate may conclude up to 50,000 new cases a day. The COVID-19 disease rate rises constantly. Today, numbers state 26,879 new cases. Over 1,800 are kids. Among the most infected are Dnipro, Odessa regions and Kyiv. 300,000 jabs a day. The national vaccination goal was set by President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The head of state stated this at a meeting of the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities held in Odessa. The President of Ukraine also noted that there is a sufficient quantity of vaccines in medical institutions, while hospitals are said to have no problems with oxygen.
Vaccination is at need. This is not another scary story, but the only right decision. I want us to not be afraid of these boogaboos spread in the media, but to feel the real threat of COVID-19.
15 regions of Ukraine will enter the red quarantine already on Saturday. They will ban public events as well as the work of catering establishments, shopping and entertainment centers, cinemas, theaters, markets, and fitness centers. These restrictions do not apply in the case of 100 vaccination of both workers and visitors. Violators of those regulations will be fined. Our correspondents know more details.
Starting Saturday, the Luhansk region of Ukraine enters the red epidemiological zone. Over the past 24 hours, the region registered more than 650 new cases of coronavirus infection.
Багато критеріїв, які
Many criteria made its effect, rising in the level of epidemiological status in our region. Most importantly, this is the poor level of the summer vaccination campaign.
Among other places to turn to the red zone is Lviv. Local residents are ready for tougher restrictions. More than 1 million residents have already made the first jab, and the vaccination rate in the region continues growing.
Вакцинуватися буду, тому що
I'll go for the jab as it is required to use the public transport or to go to the mall, and in general to continue work one needs to be vaccinated.
I think one needs first to get a test, check that he's in good health, and then vaccinate.
According to medical workers, vaccination is the only way to live a fully safe life.
Якщо насправді сьогодні ми з вами
If today we, the people of Lviv and guests of the city, do not unite and consciously do not decide to follow the personal safety rules, red zone rules, and do not increase the number of our vaccinated residents, we will appear on the verge of collapse of the medical system.
Starting the 1st of November, Kiev also hardens measures. After the holidays, students will not go back to schools. Instead, they will study remotely. Kindergartens will stay operating under the condition of 100% vaccination of workers. Strict restrictions had to be imposed due to the severe surge of the coronavirus rate.
ситуація з розповсюдженням
The situation with the spread of coronavirus in the capital is rapidly deteriorating. In the course of the last week, over 1,000 of residents of the city are getting tested positive daily, and over 30 and even 40 and 50 deaths a day. As of today, the bed occupancy in the Kyiv clinics reached almost 63%.
Dnipropetrovsk region remains in the red zone for the second week. Police officers carry checks on how cafes and restaurants adhere to the measures. Yet a cafe in the center of the city appeared incompliant with protocol. The staff has neither certificates nor PCR tests. Immediately, the director is noted on the administrative record.
у деяких співробітників
Some of workers had the certificates of the vaccination which do not correspond to the regulations approved.
Such violation provides for a 17,000 hryvnias fine, that is almost $650. The amount for the management is twice higher. The quarantine restrictions also apply in public transport. Police raids will selectively check the presence of the vaccination certificate or PCR test during the traffic. The fine would make up to 34,000 hryvnias or $1,300. Reported by Nick Starkov, Anastasia Volkova, Yulia Bil, Yulia Bardesh, Natalia Gusak, UATV News.
The Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine told how one can extend the validity of a digital COVID-19 certificate up to 365 days. This has to be done using the Diia application. But as for paper certificates, it is worth contacting a family doctor so that he writes out a new document at the end of the term of the previous one.
Для того, щоб
In order to make your COVID-19 certificate valid for 365 days, you need to go to the Services section of the app and generate a new COVID-19 certificate to make it valid for 365 days.
The developer of the fake Diia application is proposed to take an intern position in the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. This was stated on the official pages of the head of the body. Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, Shmyhal has met with the 21-year-old felon to remind his accused of the creation of the fake replica of the state Diia application and faces up to 6 years of imprisonment. Still, according to the minister, a young man will in any case subject to the penalty designated by the legislation.
We decided to give him a chance. We will work with him on a couple of socially significant projects until his sentence starts. He will have a chance to show himself. One of the first tasks is various versions of a design for social campaigns for vaccination and against the use of alcohol by young people. Campaigns are planned to be launched soon. We will appoint a curator in the ministry who will supervise his work. We will try to channel his abilities in the right direction.
The road workers are building a new Dnipro-Reshetylivka highway. It is led to bypass a dozen settlements. A whole town with its own concrete reinforcement shop was deployed at the construction site. All the necessary concrete elements will be produced here. My colleagues will tell you more.
The total length of the new road is about 60 kilometers. Half is already completely finished. Now the remaining 29 kilometers are being built.
Work on this section of the route is carried out around the clock. They make embankments, road junctions and overpasses. The hardest part will be at this place across the Urel River.
The length of the overpass is 580 meters. Due to the peculiarities of the landform, the road builders took German technology as a basis.
In order not to destroy the river, we are building supports on the banks, because this river is unique for Dnipropetrovsk region and for Ukraine in general. This is the cleanest river in our country.
Each support stands 25 meters deep in the ground, so that they can bear the weight of the overpass and transport. The sliding structure itself will be made on the spot. It is planned to fill it with concrete in early spring, as soon as the weather permits.
In addition to the overpass, there are many other buildings, each of which is unique in its own way. There are corrugated structures of metal pipes, which are designed for the passage of agricultural machinery. There are 2 tunnel-top overpasses for agricultural machinery as well.
Several two-level transport interchanges are also being built on the new highway.
It is a road of national importance, and the transport would drive in 4 lanes. And there is a road of local significance, and therefore an overpass is needed here.
The Dnipro-Reshetylivka highway is being built within the framework of the big construction project. The work is financed from the state budget.
This is the shortest way from the Dnipro city to the capital. The travel time will be reduced by almost half.
In total, more than 50 infrastructure objects will be constructed on this section of the road for the convenience of both pedestrians and drivers. Reported by Nick Starkov, Natalia Kuzak, UATV News.
That was our final story. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter pages. Stay healthy and take care of yourself.